Hello and welcome back to the finals of the World Championship in Through the Ages. In the last video you saw the first game of the finals, where I at the end finished at the third position in a 4-player game, which was not an ideal start. And so today in the second 4-player game that we are seeing, it would be ideal if I maybe get a better result and to not be too far behind the other players after the first two 4-player games have finished. And now without further ado, we are going to take a look at the game. In this game I'm playing in the second position, and first of all we can take a look at the leaders and wonders. And we can see that there is some lab synergy with Sid Meier, Einstein, Steve Jobs, Marie Curie, but no Bill Gates, so maybe the strongest lab leader isn't there. There's also some culture synergy with Chaplin and Fleming, and then there's also Churchill for the military, but no Gandhi. There's also Manhattan Project for the military with the Hollywood together with those theater leaders. The space flight is there, as well as fast food chains and United Nations. In H2 we have a lot of strong wonders, arguably maybe the strongest ones. We have Suez Canal together with James Cook, Railroad together with James Watt, Ocean Liner Service, Harvard College, Statue of Liberty, so having some nice iron production could potentially be very viable. We also then have Antoni Gaudi as a culture leader, as well as Darwin, and then Newton as a strong economic leader, and then two military action leaders with Napoleon and Catherine. We have no military action leader in H1, so it could maybe be nice to get a military action from somewhere else. But we have Nostradamus and Genghis Khan to help with the strength. Also Barbarossa can do that, but also is nice for colonization, as well as Isabella and Columbus. Then we have Saladin as a very solid leader. And we have no Silk Road, no Universitas, but the two happy face solution wonders with St. Peter's Basilica and Forbidden City are there. There's Demichi Castle, but no Great Wall, and then Machu Picchu and the Taj Mahal. PV4 starts the game with taking the Stonehenge, which I think should be the right decision. There are a lot of leaders coming down the road, and the Stonehenge is a very fine wonder. And I think for my first pick, I already have a lot of viable decisions. I could just take one of the leaders for one civil action, which would have the advantage that I can maybe take the frugality together with them. I could take Sun Tzu or Alex plus frugality, but there are also some cards on two civil actions that all could potentially be viable to take. There's the engineering genius, which I could take. There's Aristotle, which I maybe would like to have more than Alex plus Sun Tzu, so maybe I could say, even though I miss out on the frugality, I would like to go for Aristotle. And then there's also the Colossus, and there is some nice colonization synergy. There's Columbus, James Cook, or Suez Canal, so just going for the Colossus could potentially also be viable. And no, it was quite a tough decision for me. I think I don't want to take the engineering genius here, because I think I have some potentially nice leaders or wonders to take, and it could be a little bit tricky what leader or wonder I would be getting if I just take the engineering genius. It could be that some nice stuff is then taken away. Maybe I would end up with Ashoka, but depending on what wonders could come out of the deck, it could maybe not be the greatest start. Could still be a viable option, but I just think I don't like it too much. And no, it was a really close decision. I think a lot of options can be considered. At the end, I came to the conclusion that I want to take one of those leaders for one civil action because I can get the frugality together with them. And now it's the question: do I want to go for Sun Tzu or for Alex? There is some synergy for Sun Tzu with there being a lot of colonization synergy in the game. Genghis Khan and Columbus are being the game Nuyan Shishka, though. And so that could be a very viable pick. The question is, does one of my opponents go for the Colossus? That will be a very important question when we think about that. PV4 has already the Stonehenge, either Matar or E5 could potentially take the Colossus. For Matar, if I now go for Sun Tzu and Frugality, he could, of course, consider going for the Colossus, because I think he is first of all a fan of it, and then when playing against Sun Tzu, it could be nice to have it and with the colonization synergy, but maybe at the end it is too tempting for him to go for Alex plus Engineering Genius instead of Alex plus Colossus or something like this, and so he maybe rather doesn't go for it, but it could potentially happen. And then if Marta Pescher goes for Alex and Engineering Genius, then E5 could just go for the pyramids, but the only yellow card left is the Patriotism A, which is maybe not that great, and instead he could go for the Colossus either together with Aristotle, which is maybe a very fine leader to have, especially when playing the last position, or together with the Richland, which is definitely a better yellow card than the Patriotism, and I think it could be a very viable choice for him. And no, and at the end I made a decision against Sun Tzu. Of course, I could hope that I will get a Colossus, and if I get a Colossus, if I would know that for certain, then I think I would definitely prefer to have Sun Tzu. Maybe I should still go for him, because even if one of my opponents happens to go for Colossus, I can still draw a lot of cards and maybe prepare the event deck in a way that benefits my civilization. But playing against the Colossus with having Sun Tzu is just not too great, because one of your opponents will just have an advantage for colonies and for strength events, and that makes quite a big proportion of the events in the deck. So at the end I made a decision to go for Alex, because there are some nice early replacements leader with Saladin, Nostradamus, Isabella. So if one of them is available early, maybe I can just take one of them and then have the additional yellow token, so I get some guaranteed value. And so at the end I went for Alex. That of course leaves Martar with the option to go for Sun Tzu and Colossus, but maybe the Engineering Genius will be too tempting. Yes, he will go for the Engineering Genius, leaving the Colossus in the row, and now e5 has to make the decision, does he want to go for Colossus and maybe Aristotle, or does he want to go for the Pyramids, and he makes the decision to go for the Pyramids. And if you remember the last game, there the player in 4th position, in this case PV4, also went for Pyramids and Patriotism A, so the exact same pick as in the game before, interestingly, for the player on the 4th position. Now PV4 has to make a decision for his leader. He goes for Aristotle, and I think that should be the correct choice. I would also go for Aristotle, I think, and then he just builds a mine, increases his population. And then at my turn I will go for Alex. Rome roads are on 3 civil actions, but even if they would be on 2, I'm not sure if I would go for them, because with having Alex I already miss out on a civil action, because I don't get the civil action back when replacing my leader. So yeah, the question is, after building a mine and increasing my population, and I won't use the frugality, because that can potentially allow me the option to just spend all of the 4 civil actions to take some cards without having corruption if there's no development revealed before my turn. Probably I don't want to do something like this anyway, but in some situations maybe it can be nice to have the option, so I hold off on using the frugality for now. And the question is, do I want to go for one of those wonders, or do I just maybe want to go for another frugality and delay going for a wonder, maybe hoping to get the Rome roads, even though Marta Pescher might definitely take the Rome roads for 2. And no, without there being Silk Road and Universitas in the game, I think I don't want to miss out on an HA wonder, and with that, it was basically a decision between going for Acropolis or Colossus. And yeah. If I take the Acropolis, I also take the option away from Marta Pescher to go for the Acropolis. Maybe he wants to go for Rome nodes anyway, he can finish that very quickly with having the Engineering Genius. But I mean, with Sun Tzu, the 1 additional strength might help him to just push some strength events and benefit from them. It's available for 1 civil action cheaper, so I think it could be considered, and I could maybe take away some options from him. But with having the Rome roads as well, I don't think that's really necessary. And I should just consider what I value the most for myself. And it was not a completely clear decision, but with the big colonization synergy and with playing against Sun Tzu, I at the end went with the Colossus. The thing with the Colossus is, of course, it doesn't have any culture reduction, so you have to get some value out of it. If not, it can be a bit bad. If you have the Acropolis, at least it passively produces some culture, produces some relatively guaranteed value along the way when you go for a government farm. And it's quite cheap, but no, I think when with playing against Sun Tzu and with the nice synergies being the game, I at the end will go for the Colossus, and I think it's the better choice for me. I will draw 2 cards, the Kidnap and the Cultural Influence. Marta Pescher won't go for the Acropolis, is willing to pay 2 civil actions for the Rome roads, builds the 3rd mine, and then elects Sun Tzu. Can potentially just finish the Rome roads at the next turn. Then e5 will interestingly go for Clio. That was a decision that definitely surprised me a little bit, because I think I would have maybe preferred both of the other leaders over it. Maybe I would have gone with Ashoka with already having the patriotism in hand. I think that's a very solid leader, especially with playing in last position, and especially with having already a yellow card in hand. And now with going for Clio, he will be able to use her immediately with building a step of the Pyramids, but while he gets the civil action from the Pyramids very quickly, he really delays his production. At least he gets the resource from Clio, but probably something I wouldn't have done. But it's interesting to see that he goes for it, and we will see how nice that will work out for him. And also Boudica, maybe I would have still preferred over Clio, while she is not ideal, because he will have likely to use her military resources at the next turn, unless I will be using Alex, and maybe holding off from Alex at least will cost me a little bit, maybe 1 food. But after having built a warrior, he then can start getting some nice economical value out of her, and with having the pyramids, he can maybe just finish the pyramids, and delaying the second lab is not too bad. So now I was a bit surprised by the decision, but I mean, getting the 5th civil action early can maybe be quite nice, and maybe at the end can pay off, even though it delays the economy, but it's not something I would have done. PV4 at his turn has the option to take the iron for 3 civil actions, and he at the end is willing to do it. The options over 2 civil actions are maybe not that great for him, probably best the engineering genius, but he can sadly not use that nicely on the Stonehenge, so he just goes for the iron and has now the guaranteed way to upgrade his production at the next turn. I think that should be the correct decision. I, as you can see, will use Alex immediately. I will increase my population this turn, and I just want to get additional food from the yellow token immediately. I will build my second lab, getting the science production going. Will take the engineering genius and then increase my population again without using the frugality. Maybe I could have used it now, because I think it will be unlikely that I will just spend 4 civil actions to take some cards. But on the other hand, I probably won't have any hand space issues for now, so I made the decision to keep it in hand for now. But it can potentially backfire if there's something like development of civil life, then it can be that I'm forced to have it in hand for a little bit longer. I could of course also take an iron for 3 as well, but yeah, I don't like it too much because the engineering genius also gives me a lot of resources, and in contrast to PV4 I don't have an additional science production, meaning I am not guaranteed to be able to upgrade to it immediately, and then I think it's just too costly to take it for 3 here. I draw the reds and also the fighting band tactic, Matapeshur seeds, and opens the development of settlement. He could just finish the Rome roads now, even with having a free population, but he is willing to pay 2 civil actions for the iron, then builds the second lab and builds one a step of the Rome roads. Stays out of consumption for now. At the next turn can maybe finish the Rome roads and just increase his population. Could even take a card if there are no additional food or resources revealed. And no. So that looks like a fine turn. On the other hand, he has already spent 2 civil actions for the Rome roads, which costs 4 civil actions to build, and now also 2 civil actions for the iron, so it could also be that he has a little bit of an issue with the civil actions, but maybe it can still be fine for him, and then he has now just a nice way to upgrade his production quite nicely. E5 this turn will finish the pyramids, and yeah, with that further delays his lab and mine, but he can maybe at least make use out of not having built a second lab with going for Leonardo, but interestingly he's not grabbing the printing press, instead a code of laws, which is again an interesting decision. I think not grabbing the printing press is definitely not a bad idea, because all of his opponents have now already built a second lab, so he can maybe have good chances to get it at the next turn, and now, but a code of laws with having the pyramids is maybe something he doesn't really need. Maybe he wants to take it away from PV4, and maybe it can still be nice to have for him at some point. With Leonardo we will have some additional science production, but I think with having delayed the economy by quite a bit, just taking urban growth and rich land for the 2 civil actions, or maybe the warfare as well, could also be quite interesting. But he goes for the Code of Laws, and I was happy to see it because it's a card that would be nice for PV4, so it's nice that he doesn't get it, and it's maybe a card that E5 doesn't really need that much at the moment, but could still potentially be nice, of course, to have later on. PV4 goes for the iron, takes the swordsman and increases his population. It's now already scored 2 signs with Aristotle and can start some iron production. He doesn't take the warfare, which leaves the knights stay on 2 civil actions for me, which makes it a bit more tricky for me the decision if I want to take them or not. I start with seeding the reds. Just with having the Colossus I want to push the deck forward, and at least I will have knowledge about the reds, hopefully making it possible that I will be able to prepare nicely for them. The development of religion is revealed, and I can take the free religionist, which is nice. And then this turn the question is, do I want to take the knights or not? And with playing against Sun Tzu, of course it should be very... no, the knights are definitely very... it's good to have them. So no, it could maybe be very nice to just take them now for 2 civil actions. Interestingly though, at the end I made a decision against going for them, which is definitely an interesting decision. I will instead go for the warfare and the urban growth, which has some advantages. First of all, I with the warfare also have a way to increase my military strength, and I think with me not having the greatest science production, Going into the monarchy might be a bit tricky, but with having the Colossus and with getting the 3 additional draws at the beginning of H2, I think it can be nice to have more than 2 civil military actions, because otherwise it just feels wasted if you have to discard all of those cards. And then I think the Warfare can be quite a nice card to have, maybe helping me also to potentially win a colony at some point. And no, I could have, of course, just build 1 step of the Colossus and then maybe take the Knights and the Warfare in hand. No, but at the end I made a decision to rather want to have the 2 additional resource from the Urban Growth, and one reason why maybe skipping the Knights could be viable is Genghis Khan, which is a bit risky because PV4 went for the Swordsman, could maybe go for Genghis Khan as well. But if Genghis Khan is available for me, then I can also go for him, and if Matabishir should upgrade the Knight's tactic, I would then be able to copy it also with just being on infantry units. So no, at the end, maybe I also have forgotten a reason, because I was actually a bit surprised that I skipped the Knights when I took a look at the replay. No, I get a bit more economical value. Hopefully with the Colossus and the Warfare will still be fine, and Genghis Khan might allow me to also go for Knight's tactic. So at the end I made a decision against the Knights, especially with Genghis Khan. With having had Alex, I kind of want to have a new leader, so if Genghis Khan is available, I can now nicely go for him. But no, I think it could also be very fine to just take the Knights here and be prepared for Knight's tactic with actually just having the Knights. I draw Call to Arms and Immigration. Matabishir offers the Trade Routes Agreement to e5, but e5 rejects the pact. He will then finish the Rome Roads, takes 1 copy of Knights, and will actually reveal the Medieval Army tactic immediately, making it that he can keep 2 other cards in hand, and with that it will be very, very likely that this will be the upgraded tactic. And now, if I should not be able to get Genghis Khan, it could get a bit tricky for me. Then e5 will go for Leonardo. The printing press is still available. There would have been also an alchemy, but he would have been missing 1 science to go for it this turn, and also the printing press is available cheaper, so I think it makes a lot of sense to go for that. And then he will take the Knights in the Ridgeland. With the Ridgeland can maybe cheaply build his 3rd mine, and then maybe at the end it has worked out decently, his approach to delay his economy by a little bit in order to finish the pyramids quickly. PV4 Seeds, the development of politics, is revealed. He goes for the cartography with the Suez Cannon, James Cook being the game, and also with scoring a science with Aristotle. I think that is quite a viable card for him. And then he also takes the Code of Laws, the 2nd copy, and goes for an upgrade, meaning he won't go for Genghis Khan, making it that I might have the chance to take him if I want to. And as you can see with the development of politics, I have also drawn the heavy cavalry tactic, so even before I can copy the upgraded medieval army tactic, I have no way to make some use out of Genghis Khan. And with me needing a new leader anyway, and not knowing if I get the last copy of Knights, I now was thinking that I definitely should go for Genghis Khan, and I actually already started seeding a strength event in. With the Colossus I'm already at the moment the strongest, and while I won't go for something like 2 units and heavy cavalry tactic now, I might be able to do that at the following turn and then hopefully be nicely prepared for some strength events. The development of science is revealed, and I then will go for the alchemy. Before investing into strength, I want to get a little bit of economy going, increasing my science production very cheaply with the urban growth that I've taken at a turn before, and thanks to the resource from the urban growth I still have enough to build 2 warriors and then reveal the heavy cavalry tactic. If I maybe should draw an aggression with my next 2 cards, I could even threaten him to go for an aggression, with then at the next turn going for Genghis Khan, revealing the developing the warfare, revealing the heavy cavalry, also having the strength from the Colossus, so maybe I will be a bit threatening already at the next turn for my opponents. Sadly no aggression, but maybe the Uncertain Borders could be interesting in case I can seed it still in the next deck. Matabishir offers the Open Borders Agreement to me, which I happily accept. We both will be quite strong, very likely, and so while he definitely has the potential to go for a lot of strength, I was hoping that I won't be in any danger of getting aggressed by him through this pact, and he will then go for a knight going up to 6 strength, also takes the bread and circuses. Then e5 seeds and opens the development of markets. He will take 2 additional resources, I think. Actually, not 2 additional food instead. Got the 1 resource from Leonardo. Plays the Patriotism A and then builds 1 knight. Takes the monarchy. Can definitely think about doing a revolution. and then maybe build some military units thanks to the one additional resource that he gets from Leonardo. He can do a revolution at the next turn and build 2 more units, going up to quite a lot of strength, and with that being prepared for the strength events, while also setting himself up nicely with being at a lot of civil and military action. So I think that's a nice plan by him. He delays his third mine for now, but with there potentially being a lot of military pressure, I think it might be a wise decision, because it could be that the population could be needed rather than the military, but of course at some point it would be great for him to get the third mine going. PV4 takes the alchemy, scoring another science with Aristotle, has already scored 5 science with him, develops the code of laws and cartography, increases his population and upgrades his last iron mine, putting him at a lot of resource production, and then he also builds a warrior, so maybe he just wants to have this one additional strength to not be in danger of an aggression from Martin Pêcheur. I this turn have the chance to push the uncertain borders into the next deck. However, it's not completely clear if I actually should do this, because it's not clear at all if I will be able to win it. For example, if Martin Pêcheur takes the additional food from the development of markets, he can increase his population 2 times if he wants to, go for another army, and then make sure that he's the strongest. At least it would come at a cost of delaying the iron, and maybe if he didn't see a lot of strength events, it could be that he rather wants to do that, and at least I was thinking that I'm hopefully not that much in danger of losing to the uncertain borders, and with that I was willing to take the risk to not win it, because if one of my opponents wins it and another one just loses it, it's basically still somewhat fine for me, and I have the chance to maybe win it, because I will be the strongest. And with the event deck being flipped, maybe Martin Pêcheur wants to see it, and one of the other events that I've pushed, the rats, could actually be quite annoying for him, because losing 5 food now would be quite bad, so also just for the chance for that to happen, and also he has to think about such events when he seeds, when I leave the HA development on top. He can just safely seed. Now he has to think, does he really want to seed? So either he maybe has to skip seeding, or he seeds and then there's the chance that rats are revealed, that the uncertain borders are revealed immediately, and so I was willing to push them into the deck. The development of planning is revealed, and the options for that are development of crafts, civil life and warfare. It was a close decision for me between civil life and warfare. At the end, as you can see, I used the development of civil life to develop the warfare, saving 1 science and 1 civil action, and also I gained 2 additional food from the development of markets. And no, it was a close decision for me. Maybe we can first take a look at my turn, see what I will be doing, and then we can see what the difference would have been between taking the development of warfare or taking now the development of civil life and developing the warfare with it. First of all, I will go for Genghis Khan. I want to build 2 warriors, reveal the tactic, going up to 10 strength, putting some pressure on my opponents, and then I want to increase my population because of the rats, and at the end now I will take the rich land, because I might miss out on a copy of iron, and then I think especially with waiting for coal, having a rich land in hand is just so helpful and makes it a lot easier to get the coal going without any problems. And no, so that is what I do now. I could have taken the development of warfare, which means that I don't have the additional civil action that I get with developing the warfare, meaning I don't have a free civil action to take the rich land at the end, but I basically get the 2 additional resources for getting the warrior for free, and I also would get 1 more draw, which would mean that it is maybe more likely that I get something like an aggression or maybe another strength event or something that I can push. So it could maybe be interesting to get the additional draw. However, I would not save the 1 additional science when developing the warfare, which is a bit bad. On the other hand, I would have 2 additional resources that I can use immediately compared to having the rich land, which I can only use as soon as I maybe go for some farm or mine upgrades. And with those additional resources, I can at the next turn, build a warrior and still have enough resources to go for 1 lab upgrade if I want to. So while I miss out on 1 science from developing the warfare for 1 cheaper, I might just get the science back, because at the next turn it could potentially be nice to build a warrior, but maybe it's also not necessary. It's not guaranteed that I will do it, and if I don't do it, then I probably just miss out on the science. So I think it's quite close which option is better, and it was a close call at the end. I just went for just getting the 1 additional science for certain. It could be nice to build a warrior the next turn, because maybe it will make the difference between being the strongest after my turn or not. For example, if e5 just goes for another army, which might happen, then He is a 10 strength, and I might want to go up to 11 and also have a free military action that I can use. And probably at some point I want to copy the upgraded medieval army tactic from Marteau-Pêcheur, and then I need 4 warriors anyway, and so building one while not missing out on any draw could be nice. I draw 1 card, no aggression, but the Reign of Terror, which could be a nice event to seed. Marteau-Pêcheur seeds, and I was very happy to see that the reds are revealed. No uncertain borders, that of course also would have been very nice to see, but the reds now I think is quite a setback for Marteau-Pêcheur. Now he can't easily go for another army, meaning he can't get the strongest, maybe will miss out on some strength events, and that is definitely a bit annoying for him. But I think he took the food from the development of markets and used the development of civil life, making it that he can immediately at least get 1 additional population, builds a warrior, goes for Columbus. Interestingly, already this turn could have kept Sun Tzu for 1 more turn, but maybe he wants to have the option to go for a colony already the next turn, especially if he has vast or inhabited. It makes a lot of sense, because then he can use Columbus and thanks to the colony go for another knight, maybe make sure that he is the strongest then again. E5 will indeed do the revolution with the development of civil life to at least, not really save a civil action, but at least save 1 science, and then he indeed will go for an army going up to 10 strength, which I think is a good decision. Then PV4 will go for the monarchy with Aristotle, and he will also go for Nostradamus, meaning he won't finish the Stonehenge for now, instead goes for Nostradamus. The additional strength from him is quite helpful, and then he builds 1 step of the Stonehenge, develops the alchemy and goes for an upgrade, is willing to again sneak a bit of economy in. And also with not finishing the Stonehenge but building on it, he expects the game to last 1 more turn, and it should also be quite likely, because E5 has a lot of civil actions, but I and Marteau-Pêcheur only have 4, and there will be 11 cards left after his turn, so it should be quite likely that the age will not end before his next turn, and then he can finish the Stonehenge at the next turn and maybe develop the monarchy. I this turn seeded the Reign of Terror. Hopefully I won't lose a population to it at the end. It will take a while until it will be revealed. Maybe I should rather see the safe event, but at the moment I was confident that hopefully I will find a way to not be the weakest. The strategic territory is revealed. I was not willing to bid that much for it. Not just 1 warrior, and at the end PV4 is able to win it for warrior. At least he has to send 2 colonization cards away. I then this turn will indeed build 1 warrior, which makes it that I can use the free military action, so that if I want to copy the upgraded medieval army tactic, I have already built a warrior and won't miss out an additional draw if I build it at the next turn. Also, it makes me stronger, so if for some reason Marteau-Pêcheur wants to see it, which will very, very likely not happen, I'm the strongest, but also E5 could maybe consider seeding, and then I could be the strongest, even though Marteau-Pêcheur might get stronger than me if he builds 1 knight. Sadly, it goes up to 12th thanks to the tactic being upgraded. Yeah, but I still went for this warrior, which sadly means that I just miss out on being able to upgrade this alchemy, but I might be able to go for the masonry, which was also a reason why I think I went for the development of civil life at the turn before, because if I should now go for the masonry, I can actually still upgrade this alchemy, and there are some interesting wonders for the masonry. It can still save me some resources over the game, so I think it could be an interesting choice, but I made a decision against it here, and instead went for, first of all, for the theology, because if the age will end before my next turn, I will have an uprising issue. And if I now just go for the masonry and upgrade 1 lab, it could still be fine, but then I have invested another science into the masonry, will need to invest into the theology, and I think I just am not that nicely prepared to go for government form and a coal easily in age 2. If those cards are available early for me, I would have to wait going for them, and that is not really that great. So instead I actually went for the cultural heritage and for the breakthrough, just making sure that I have a lot of additional science in hand, and with that hopefully without any problem being able to go for a government form and also for the coal or maybe the last copy of iron. I could have also developed the theology already, maybe even upgraded to it, so that could have been also a nice option, but at the end I was willing to pay the 2 civil actions for the additional science from the breakthrough. I draw some cards, colonization card, fighting band tactic, and dark ages. Marteau-Pêcheur will use Columbus, yes he will, and the colony that he gets from it is the vast territory 1, with that he can build an additional knight, increases his population again, and then takes the frugality and the masonry, and even is building another warrior, going up to 13 strength, maybe wants to be able to bid for a colony without losing too much strength. or wants to go for another tactic soon anyway and wants to now rather miss out on an h1 draw rather than missing out on an h2 draw at the next turn. e5 seats, sadly the uncertain borders are revealed now, so at the end I wasn't able to win them, but I also don't lose to them, so it's maybe not too bad. Even though Matapesher has now a lot of additional yellow tokens, so that is definitely not looking bad for him and definitely gives him a bit of an advantage. Can now easily go for another knight soon and put really a lot of pressure on the other players. Hopefully I will be able to not be in too much trouble because of that, but no, that is of course not too great, him having that many additional yellow tokens, but PV4 has lost one. I just didn't get influenced directly by this event, so it was still not really bad to have seeded it, but could of course potentially help Matapesher now. e5 will copy the upgraded medieval army tactic now. With that I'm not one of the two strongest any longer, but at the next turn I can also then finally copy the tactic and go up to 13 strength. And PV4 will finish the Stonehenge, and as you can see, it was actually quite close at the end. Only one card left, but at the end it did work out for him. The age didn't end, and he can now finish the Stonehenge, go for the monarchy, upgrade one more lab, and take the knights. And with that, it's definitely also not looking bad for him. He has some very solid production, a very solid amount of civil and military actions. There are a lot of strong H2 wonders, and I think he has a very nice setup to now just go for them and improve his economy in that way. But he is a little bit low in population after having won the strategic territory and maybe will remain the weakest for a little while. Now h2 starts, and of course I am interested to see what cards I have drawn. The politics of strength could maybe be interesting, even though for now Matapesher is probably better equipped to go for the military. The mobile artillery tactic could also be interesting, but for now I have a lot of warriors, so not the most interesting draw, but still nice to maybe have the tactic in case I can maybe win a colony to make a transition at some point. The first thing that I will be doing is definitely to copy the tactic, making me one of the two strongest again, getting the culture from Genghis Khan, being better prepared for strength events. And then as you can see I have now an uprising issue, meaning that I'm kind of forced to go for this theology. The only other option would be to go for theocracy, but I don't want to do that when I'm now nicely prepared to go for an H2 government form, and actually the two players in front of me have an H1 government form, so I think I have good chances to maybe get something like Conmon or Republic going relatively quickly. Then I will go for this one upgrade to theology, and now I have just enough resources to also go for an upgrade to alchemy, increasing my science production. And then for the last civil action it was the question for me, do I want to play the cultural heritage or do I want to take the reserves? There's no Bach in the game, there is Anthony Gaudi, but I have no additional population at the moment, so I think the drama is not really that much of a consideration. On one hand the reserves could be nice, because I am on bronze mines, have spent a lot of resources now, and just getting 2 additional resources out of somewhere could be quite helpful. On the other hand, I'm at the moment only on 4 civil actions, and reserves is just not really an efficient card, and with that I think at the end I made the call to just play the cultural heritage, be 1 civil action ahead at a later point, and hopefully instead of the reserves from H1 maybe using the civil action later on to get something better. And I at the end drew the Dark Ages, so I also can play the science without too much trouble, because I know the Dark Ages is not in the deck. As you can see with my next draw, I actually get a lot of tactics. I have now already 3 H2 tactics, defensive army and conquistadors, and especially the defensive army could be a very nice tactic for me to have if I get riflemen and cannons. Matapesher goes for an aggression against PV4, a raid, which is definitely painful for PV4 to lose an alchemy. He would have needed 2 colonization cards to defend, but he has already sent 2 away for the strategic territory, which of course then again allowed him to draw more cards, but Matapesher maybe thought there is maybe a chance that he will win the aggression and tries it, and at the end is successful with it, and again getting some additional resources. And with that he can now build 1 knight and go for another upgrade, which is nice because it allows him to spend a civil action in a nice way and also go up to 18 strength. If he has another aggression he can maybe go for it at the next turn. e5 seats and opens the call to arms. I'm not part of that, so I won't lose the civil actions, which could be quite important, because with only being in 4 civil actions, losing 1 or maybe even 2 could have been very painful. e5 is willing to go for the iron, even though it's relatively late, but he has only in 2 mines, and as we will see, will actually destroy another mine this turn. I mean, he didn't destroy one before, but is now only in 1 mine left, so at least he's now in 2 resource production, scores another resource with Leonardo, but that is of course not ideal. with being only into resource production, but he has 2 rich lands in hand, so as soon as he can maybe get some population, he is then prepared to maybe rebuild one more or 2 more mines. PV4 doesn't seed, and instead he will upgrade 1 lab. Goes for Anthony Gaudi, doesn't elect him because for now the strength from Nostradamus is still quite relevant, and then he takes the reserves, which allows him to get an additional population out, which could be very important. I seed this turn. I am actually not completely sure which event it was. I think maybe the Knowledge of the Ancients, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I think it should be the Knowledge of the Ancients. At the moment, every player has just 1 wonder, so it might give everyone a relatively similar amount of value. Of course, you could argue I have some strong science production already, but if I go for coal in a government form, I probably also want to go for something like Rifleman if possible, selective breeding, so of course maybe it will help my opponents quite a bit as well, but I think with not having a government form yet, I also can use the additional science quite nicely, so I seeded it into the deck. Also I'm one of the 2 strongest. There are some events that could be a bit annoying for me, and sadly one of them is actually revealed now, which I was not too happy to see. The Good Harvest giving me 2 additional food, meaning that now I will be stuck on 3 food, and I have corruption issues now, which is a bit painful because there's not really any nice way to get out of corruption, and I will actually do the exact same turn that I would have done without the 2 additional food. I will just take the coal and develop it so that I the next turn can start upgrading to it. At least I can still upgrade to it thanks to the rich land, otherwise the Good Harvest would have been even more painful. But even with still being able to upgrade, it is quite a bit annoying, because if I don't get something like an efficient upgrade, it means that I can't go for a second upgrade in 2 turns, so that is definitely a bit hurtful. But I knew that this event could have been the deck. Also the new deposits could have been a bit annoying, maybe a little bit less, because at least I would have done still enough to go for a second upgrade in 2 turns. But the 2 additional resources, or the 2 resources that I will lose now to corruption, are definitely a bit painful. Instead of taking and developing the coal, I could have also just maybe grab an efficient upgrade, get some additional resources, and then just go for the coal at the next turn. All of my opponents have committed to iron, so hopefully none of them will take it away, but maybe it could happen that it is taken away if one opponent just doesn't have anything better to do. And also I'm on low civil actions, so I think maybe just spending the actions on something that I really need to do, even though I can maybe get it for cheaper the next turn, could still be nice. Now I have already developed it. If at the next turn a government farm is on the row, I can easily maybe just develop the government farm, go for an upgrade, and then still have a civil action or 2 left to do some other stuff. And with that I just wanted to do this, leaving me flexible also in case maybe there's something like Rifleman on the row for 3. I can then go for an upgrade, take the Rifleman or something, and that would not be possible if I just take the efficient upgrade, or maybe something like Wave of Nationalism, which could be a very nice card to have, but for now PV4 is quite weak, so in the near future I might not be able to get 6 resource out of it. And so at the end I just went for the coal and develop it, and one reason why I can do that is that I'm still in 12 science afterwards, thanks to having taken the cultural heritage and breakthrough early on and not having gone for the masonry, meaning that in case I get a government form, which is not that unlikely, with the players in front of me having the monarchy, I will be able to go for it immediately, and hopefully with that improving my position. I draw some events now. The Civil Unrest could maybe be one that I can push into the deck, and there's another aggression from Martin Boucher against PV4. But, definitely unfortunate for PV4. Martin Boucher has only drawn 1 H2 card, and it happens to be another aggression that PV4 now has to suffer through. And losing 5 science is quite painful, especially because he has can get an additional population out now at his next turn, but now he's missing the science to develop the swordsmen or the knights, so definitely not great for him, and a bit unlucky that Martin Boucher has this aggression available for him. He then will upgrade his last mine, increases his population, and then takes the efficient upgrade, allowing him to maybe go for some cheap upgrades to selective breeding or scientific method. Then it's E5's turn, and he will make the situation even more dangerous for me in PV4, offering the promise of military protection to Martin Boucher. He will produce some additional culture and maybe makes it that he is a bit safer, because Martin Boucher has now some good reasons to rather focus on me in PV4 with the 4 additional strength, so definitely that could get a bit dangerous for me and also for PV4, who maybe can't increase his strength efficiently at his next turn with now missing the science to go for swordsmen or knights. E5 now will go for the Code of Laws, so as predicted, And it took a while until he can go for it, but now he can actually go for it. Doesn't leave himself too vulnerable. Is now missing one science to go for something like Rifleman, which could potentially be bad, but he has now a lot of civil actions, so now it is definitely still useful to have this card available. Also, he is now this turn able to rebuild one of his mines with the rich land, going up to at least 4 resource production again, and then taking the engineering genius in the urban growth. Now it's PV4's turn, and he finds a way to actually get one of his military techs out. Offers the scientific cooperation to Martha Bashir. That is an early pact, and I was a bit afraid that if they manage to get both some value out of it, it could be quite a strong pact for him, but maybe there is the hope that PV4 will just use it to develop a military tech, and then Martha Bashir, with having some science saved up, maybe then PV4 could cancel it again at the next turn. On the other hand, he has Nostradamus, has some good reasons to see it, and could still maybe hope to get some nice value out of the pact, especially with Martha Bashir for now not having a lot of civil actions. Thanks to the pact, he can now develop the knights, builds one, and plays the phalanx tactic. Could have also copied the medieval army tactic, but it's the same strength for now, and at the moment it doesn't look like he can easily go for another knight, so he rather wants to maybe have the additional draw instead of having the better tactic available. And long-term better tactic. For now, of course, it gives the same value, and then he will just go for the Howard College, which will help him to maybe recover from the 5 science that he lost to the spy, and is just a very nice thing for him to invest into. And now, this turn it was a bit of a tricky decision for me. First of all, I will see that I'm still one of the 2 strongest, and the Civil Unrest hopefully will be a fine event. Also, will know exactly when it will be revealed, because all of the other events in the next event, the Gao H1 events. The inhabited territory is revealed. I am not willing to bid more than 1 unit, and I'm also not willing to bid the colonization card, because having that still in hand could actually be quite important for me, depending on what I will choose to do at my turn. E5 at the end is able to win it, wins it for a warrior, will make him weaker, and he lost some colonization cards, so of course Martha Bashir will now lose the 4th strength if he goes for an aggression or war against him, but maybe especially in aggression, because for war he can at least rebuild relatively nicely, but I could still make him a bit vulnerable, but of course he also gets a nice colony, and there is the Suez Cannon in the game, so it might be worth the risk. Now at my turn, of course, I kind of want to start upgrading to coal, but then it's a bit of a decision. How likely is it that Martha Bashir will go for an aggression against me? And also, what will I do with the remaining civil actions? Because one card that is in the row that I kind of really would like to have is this copy of Rifleman, because just being able to upgrade those warriors could be a very nice and basically also the only nice way to increase my strength, because for anything else I basically would need some population. So I could go for an coal upgrade, just grab the Rifleman, or I could go for an upgrade, maybe take the wave and the cannons, getting some additional resource from the wave, but then not having the Rifleman. And all of my opponents didn't commit to swordsman yet, so the Rifleman could be somewhat contested, and if I don't get them it could be quite bad, especially with having the defensive army tactic. So I could just go for an upgrade, take the Rifleman, but the question is again, how likely is it that Martha Bashir will go for an aggression? If I just stayed 13 strength, he with the open borders agreement has 11 additional strength against me. And I thought that it could make quite a difference to maybe have the 2 additional strength that I will have when I just upgrade to 1 Rifleman. So even though it is quite costly, especially with me still being on low resources, delaying the coal upgrade is not really something I want to do, but I think the 2 additional strength could make quite a difference, because Martha Bashir has multiple targets that are somewhat vulnerable to an aggression, so if I make myself just a bit more prepared, maybe he, instead of going for an aggression against me, will rather go against one of the other players. Maybe with the Colossus draws I could have been also fine with just going for a coal upgrade, but I would now need 2 colonization cards if I don't go for this upgrade to threaten the defense. Actually, I still need 2, but it might look to Martha Bashir as I maybe need only 1 H2 colonization card, because as you can see I kept a fighting band tactic in hand. The main reason for that was that no legion or fighting band tactic is revealed, and if I want to transition out of Genghis Khan at some point, it could be important to still have such a tactic available, so I, if possible, would like to try to keep this tactic in hand. But it could also serve a different nice purpose now, because with having 2 H1 cards still in hand, Martha Bashir has to expect that maybe both of them are colonization cards, and now with being 9 strength behind him, already taking the open borders agreement into account. If I would have 2 H1 colonization cards, then actually 1 H2 colonization card would be enough to defend, and with that maybe I make myself look like I'm relatively good equipped to defend against an aggression, meaning that if he goes for another one, if he has maybe drawn another one or maybe still one from H1, he rather will go for against the other opponents, and with that I at the end made the decision to go for the Rifleman, but missing out on the upgrade is quite painful. But also if I should get hit by a war, now at least I can go for a second upgrade. If I just would have gone for the upgrade, take the Rifleman, I would be 1 resource missing of going for 2 Riflemen at a turn after, so it just makes me a bit safer, and with that I was willing to delay the 1 upgrade, but having to take the Coal and the Rifleman for 3 with only being 4 civil actions, and also losing the 2 resource earlier is quite painful, and I was hoping that now and the next turn I can maybe finally start going for an upgrade. Sadly, one downside is of course that I don't have enough science to go for a government form, but there is at least a chance that the knowledge of the ancients will be revealed, and and I just thought it is maybe the safer play. But I am not really prepared to defend against aggression. I have not a colonization card, but this card is the fighting band, no colonization card from H1, so if Matabishir tries an aggression against me, would be successful, but he goes against E5, which I was very happy to see, and E5, I mean, he would need 3 H2 colonization cards, so even though the pact gets now cancelled, I think it's just a safer target, and maybe the upgrade actually made a difference, whether Matabishir goes against me or not. Maybe he would have gone against E5 anyway, but he could have maybe kept the additional strength from the pact, and maybe could have some nice hope to win an aggression against me. And if I would have lost the population, it would have been quite painful, so maybe my decision got rewarded, but maybe Matabishir would have gone for the aggression against E5 anyway. He will now go for Matabishir, which is a nice leader for him. He had Columbus, so getting an early H2 leader is nice, and he's actually willing to pay 2 civil actions to take the journalism from the 3 civil action area, but he has still a free population. It is a very nice card with Darwin, allows him to maybe improve his economy nicely while also starting a bunch of culture production. He has the bread and circuses in hand for Darwin, and with that, it's definitely not looking bad for him. E5 this turn will develop the Swordsmith, go 1 more resource with the Leonardo, then we'll go for Napoleon. He's now down to 2 science production again after having Leonardo not any longer, but Napoleon will help him to be quite a bit stronger, is now one of the 2 strongest, so for me it will now get a bit difficult to get additional cult from Genghis Khan, and could also maybe miss out on some potential strength events. PV4 this turn uses the Scientific Cooperation Pact, goes for the architecture, and with that can very efficiently finish the Harvard College, and then he's willing to take the strategy, might have enough science depending on how many technologies Matabishir will develop it at the next turn, and maybe be a bit safer with that. But now that he is at 10 strength, he is also relatively safe now that Matabishir is not on 22 strength any longer. Now it's my turn again, and I don't really want to push the inhabited territory into the deck. And I definitely want to take the cavalryman, because as you can see I draw even more tactics. I have now drawn all of the H2 tactics apart from Napoleonic army and fortifications, which is definitely some very nice knowledge to have, and could mean that my opponents will maybe struggle to get any tactic going. And I don't know if I get the cannons yet. First copy is taken away, and I have the classic army tactics, so I definitely want to have the cavalryman available to have a nice way to upgrade or to fix my strength if I need to. And then I also have this turn already think about what leader I maybe want to go for, because all of them that are on the row could potentially be somewhat viable, and if I don't go for any of them, the only one left is James Cook, who isn't really doing anything for me, so I already this turn have to commit to one of the leaders. And and I think James Watt of course could be interesting, because I haven't upgraded to Cole yet, so I can start saving some resource. I could even just take him, elect him, upgrade, but then I lose a lot of strength from Genghis Khan, leaving me a bit vulnerable, making it that I'm the weakest, and I know that the Reign of Terror is coming. I don't have a free population, so that's something that I don't really like that much, and I kind of like to get one upgrade going this turn, and then James Watt, when I don't go for him already this turn, would have already missed out on one of his potential discounts. Also, I don't get the selective breeding, and I don't know if I will get one copy, because all of my opponents don't have irrigation, so it could be that I don't get the selective breeding at the end. And so also with being on one civil action more expensive, I at the end Instead, went for Catherine. Newton, of course, could also be fine, giving me a bit of additional science, saving some civil actions at some point, but I thought Catherine could be nice, especially in the case I will end up having the Republic. If I get the Conmon, she's maybe not that ideal, but at least maybe I can get a 2 additional culture. The military action could still be somewhat nice, and maybe I can get an additional yellow token from her, but especially if I get a Republic, I think she could be a very nice fit for me, and then maybe more important than having the 1 additional science and the civil action saving from Newton. And so I went for Catherine, but I don't want to elect her now. I still want to keep Genghis Khan to not be the weakest, and then I will go for an upgrade. I could have gone for another upgrade to Ralphman, making it that I get a 3 additional cards from Genghis Khan, and that would also allow me to take the selective breeding for 2. But at this point I just felt like I need to get this upgrade going, and then instead of the selective breeding I will be able to take the urban growth, so basically I get 5 additional resources compared to just taking the selective breeding, and that was maybe just too much value, and I was willing to take the risk missing out on them, because if I miss out on the selective breeding, maybe there's at least a chance that I will be able to go for the ocean liner service, and with that I at the end rather wanted to go for the upgrade and take the urban growth. Now I will draw some cards. The International Trade Agreement could be a nice pact, and also Ravages of Time with having the Colossus could be a nice event to push, so a relatively nice draw. Then after my turn, sadly, the foray will be revealed. With e5 having gone for Napoleon, I'm not one of the 2 strongest any longer, and sadly won't get any additional stuff out of that. Mata Peshur, I think, will take 3 food out of it, which allows him to go for 2 more population. And he goes for 1 for now, has corruption, but has now some nice science production, again saves some science with the Scientific Cooperation Pact, and then also takes the first copy of Selective Breeding. So as soon as he gets a government form, I think he has a very strong position going. e5, after having gone for Napoleon, makes the decision to make some use out of his strength, goes for this war over technology against PV4, and then will go for the railroad, finishes it, interestingly, without using the engineering genius, so he has the hope that he can maybe still use it for the full 4 resources, and there are some wonders left that he maybe can go for, like Suez Canal or Ocean Liner service, so that hope might be justified, and so he finishes it without it, and then has 5 additional strength, also is now at 6 resource production, fixing his economy, and with his last civil action will take the patriotism, and might be able to steal quite a bit of science from PV4, who again gets hit by some bad military stuff. So he had to suffer through 2 bad aggressions already, and now might also get hit by a devastating war. He will go for the strategy, will go for the medieval army tactic if he doesn't want to lose the strategy. He has to get more strength, is now at least at 18 strength, will only lose 4 science, but he had to destroy this farm, will now play the reserves to not have any famine issues. At least he will get reserves and frugality to maybe help him getting some population back, but it's definitely a setback having to destroy this and now still losing some science to this war. Him being forced to increase his strength will also mean that I will now be the weakest, which is not that ideal with the Reign of Terror being in the deck, so I don't want to push. Instead I will offer the International Trade Agreement. As you can see, I offer to PV4, and also I will take the additional food, because that will mean that I will be able to increase my population, which could be nice. Either I can use maybe the population to increase my military or something. For example, if there's a copy of cannons on the row, I might be able to go for 1 cannon, reveal a defensive army tactic, and maybe make sure that I'm not the weakest any longer and can easily transition out of Genghis Khan. But also in case that doesn't happen, then at least I can increase my population, and I have a free population to lose if the Reign of Terror shouldn't be revealed before my next turn. So because of that, and because of having additional population in general being quite nice, I made a decision to take the additional food from the pact, and at the end I offered it to PV4 because I think he has some issues, will get hit by this war, has still a very fine economy, so his position might still be fine, but I felt like he has some issues, and so I was willing to help him out with the resources. He doesn't have the most population, which maybe could make it a bit difficult for him to invest those resources, and so he was the choice for the pact at the end. The Conmon is available for me for 1 civil action, which is nice. Finally I can go for a government form, but on the other hand, the Republic, especially with having taken Catherine, would have been maybe my preferred choice, but at least in case I maybe want to go for some military pressure, maybe if I get some nice Colossus draws, having the additional military actions could be quite nice, but for now those are a bit overkill, and just saving 1 science and having more civil action with the Republic would have been my preferred choice, but at least I have a government form now, which is nice. I can go for it. I will go for 1 more upgrade, putting me at 17 strength, Sadly with that I'm still the weakest, and after having taken the selective breeding for 2, just making sure that I have a way to fix my population, I then make the decision to go for Catherine, because the weakest I am anyway, and after revealing the fighting band tactic I am not in danger of an aggression, and I at least get a 2 additional culture from Catherine, so I thought it's now a nice point to maybe elect her already. Now I have 2 civil actions left. I could just take the efficient upgrade, and that is also what I will be doing, because I think there are not really that great alternatives, and the resources that I will save from it are still quite nice. I draw the crime wave and the Napoleonic army tactic, so now there's actually only the fortifications tactic left that I don't have knowledge about. Martyr Bashir seeds, the reign of terror is revealed, so sadly that event is already out before I have the chance to increase my population at the next turn, so I will have to destroy something now because of it, which is not ideal. Martyr Bashir then will go for the bread and circuses, make sure that he has a nice happy face solution for Darwin, can develop it with saving some science with the Scientific Cooperation Pact, will also develop the Conmon, and then will build another journalism, is now at 8 culture production, 7 science production, can maybe start upgrading his population at the next turn, and has the rifleman to also nicely increase his strength, so I think his position is definitely not looking bad. E5 will now steal 4 science from PV4, he will go down to 1 science, which is definitely not great for him. Then E5 will seed, and the knowledge of the ancients will be revealed, giving everyone some additional science, and especially for PV4 it might be at least nice to get now a bit of additional science, making the loss of the science maybe a little bit less painful, but of course what was still very costly. E5 will now go for journalisms, upgrading his economy and culture production, then goes for the organized religion and the reserves. Doesn't go for the Suez Canal. PV4 seeds, the raiders are revealed, so sadly I have to lose some stuff at my turn, which is again not ideal because I am still a bit low on food and resources, but sadly I am the weakest, so I definitely have to expect getting hit by some strength events. PV4 will go for the last copy of selective breeding, will upgrade to it, make sure to get additional population, has only 1 farm, and maybe at the next turn can start thinking about rebuilding the 2nd farm. Also will go for Anthony Gaudi and can develop the team sports, so he again, even though he was low in science, thanks to the knowledge of the ancients, can now again get 2 activations out of the Scientific Cooperation Pact, and with that made it that it was nice for him to not cancel the pact and keep it now for longer, because now he's again on 7 science production, can maybe still get some nice value out of the pact. Now it is my turn, and I, even though I'm the weakest, will push, because the Ravages of Time will be quite nice, and after I've gotten the H3 draws, the Colossus maybe not that much needed any longer, so I push this into the deck. I am the weakest, but I could get punished, there are a lot of strength events out, but there are still some left, for example the border conflict, and also the next event is the civil unrest, so if I push now and Martyr Bashir will push, he is in danger of losing 8 culture and a blue token to this event. If I don't push, he can maybe push and then fix his happy faces, so also because of that I wanted to get this event into the deck. Sadly there is the border conflict, so I again will now will have to lose something, and it's definitely starting to get a bit painful, and now I at the end make the decision to lose a warrior to the Reign of Terror, lose 1 food and 1 resource, leaving me exactly with enough food to still increase my population, even though I will actually not increase my population this turn but next turn, and to the border conflict I will lose an HA farm. But it's definitely not ideal. This turn I will take the cannons, develop the cannons, build 1, and reveal the defensive army tactic, making it that I'm not the weakest any longer, so hopefully I won't get hit by any bad strength events. And but it also means that I delay my resource and food upgrades any longer, but I think I need the additional strength, and I don't want to be the weakest any longer. And then I have 3 civil actions left, and I could maybe take the urban growth, one of those cards, but all of the cards available for 1 civil action is not really that much needed for me, and at the end I just went for the rich land, because with having delayed my upgrades for that long, I think now the 3 additional resources will be very valuable to now at least get them going quite quickly. I could have also increased my population, taking the urban growth, but maybe the urban growth, the resource from there, I don't need that quickly as from the rich land. And also, if Martyr Bashir shouldn't seed, and maybe the age will end relatively quickly, then if I increase my population, there's the danger that I will actually lose 4 culture myself to the civil unrest, which I wanted to avoid. So because of that, I was willing to just take the rich land for 3. I draw some cards, a War of Territory, the Historic Territory, and a Raid. Mata Bashir seeds, which I was happy to see because it will cost him 8 culture and a blue token, so at least that is a setback for him. He will then go for the selective breeding, is able to increase his population at the next turn, builds the bread and circuses now, so now he has the happy phases, but it's a little bit too late now, and then he will go for the cannons and ends his turn. Building the bread and circus, he also made sure to not be the weakest any longer. E5 seeds, the economic progress is revealed, which is maybe a bit too early for me, but maybe the additional resource will also help me to upgrade some stuff a bit quicker. But for now, the other players are getting a bit more value out of it. E5 has now still the chance to use his engineering genius 2 very nicely, goes for the ocean liner service, and I think his economy now relatively nicely recovered. If you remember, he was on only 2 resource production, at some point at only 2 science production, but now he has fixed those things, has a decent amount of culture production, the strongest for now, and with the ocean liner service will make it that this economy gets even better. H3 starts, and PV4, even though it's the weakest, is willing to push. Maybe he has some knowledge that there aren't that many strength events. He at least had Nostradamus for quite a while, so his seeding, the freedom of movement is revealed. He will move a worker from knight to selective breeding, rebuilding the farm, and then rebuilding the knight, so basically saving 1 civil action in the process, which is nice. Then takes the opera, has now a way to increase his culture production even more in case he gets the freedom to do it, and also has the urban growth. Now it is my turn. I am not the weakest, and with that I made the decision to seed a crime wave into the deck, because I just wanted to get some additional culture. At this point I was not too confident about my position. I at least have still a little bit of a culture lead, but as you can see, all of the opponents will start catching up to me, and so I thought I just need to start getting a bit more culture out of everything as possible, and I just need to hope that maybe I will be able to avoid getting hit by it. At least I have a nice tactic. The others maybe don't, with me have knowledge about that many tactics, and then maybe I can now get 2 culture for seeding and 3 culture against 2 opponents later on when it will be revealed. The event revealed is the popularization of science, which is not that great for me, but also there are not the biggest differences. This turn I finally have to get some additional food production going. I will develop the selective breeding, go for 2 upgrades so that I can get some population out quickly. I will also go, after increasing my population, I could think about building the theology, because there could still be immigration, but the civil unrest is out, and so I think at the end it's more important to go for also 1 coal upgrade, at least having a somewhat decent economy now. But most worrying thing is probably my science production, but at least I can take the revolutionary idea for that. So I have a decent economy now, but only 6 civil actions. I'm at 3 culture production for now, so the others will at some point overtake me. And E5 has the ocean liner service. Mata Bashir has a well-rounded economy, has Darwin and 10 culture production. So I was a bit worried about my position, but it's also not that bad that that I'm completely hopeless or something, but I'm definitely wouldn't choose my position if I now could choose one of every position and play with that position from now on. But I was now at least very happy to see what I drew, because of course I first of all also had 3 additional draws already from the Colossus, drew 1 wall already, the impact of happiness and the armed intervention, and now I have the positional army tactic, and that could be a very important option for me to have. Going for war, I can now plan for that war very early already, thanks to the additional draws and thanks to being lucky and drawing basically the perfect tactic. So that definitely gave me some hope back, and maybe I can pull off a relatively big war with having this tactic available. Mata Bashir seeds, the wealthy territory is revealed. I'm not willing to bid for that. It would just leave me in danger of an aggression. Mata Bashir is at the end able to win it, sends a whole army away and a colonization card, but gets a lot of additional resources, and as we will see, he will also make a transition into a new tactic, builds 2 cannons, increases population, builds the bread and circuses, takes the democracy, can maybe develop it at the next turn, and copies plays the mobile artillery tactic. I had this tactic at hand at some point, but the deck got reshuffled, and with that Mata Bashir still got access to the tactic, and is now 23 strength, E5 seats, and the international agreement is revealed, allowing him to take some additional cards. He will interestingly use it to just take the fundamentalism, didn't have enough hand space to take anything else. but still was willing to take it, will miss out on the next politics phase, but can now finish the ocean liner service, go for the organized religion, the breakthrough, and the modern infantry, and has the fundamentalism in hand, and it kind of looks like he is maybe also planning to go for some military now, with him valuing the fundamentalism that much, and maybe plans to pull off something off with Napoleon and now the fundamentalism and the military text that he has in hand. PV4 seeds and opens the Ravages of Time. That was seeded by me. I will now lose the Colossus. PV4 will lose the Stonehenge. Will now go for the computers, which allows him to use his resources nicely without needing any population. Has now a lot of science production, takes the movies as well, and develops them with Godi with the Scientific Cooperation Pact. Now it is my turn. I will now make sure that I'm again prepared for any Happy Face related event. Will build another temple. Also, thanks to the Ravages of Time, I'm at least now on 6 culture production, which makes it that maybe I can at least stay at a relatively equal amount as my opponents. And there isn't really any nice option for me to now go for a booming economy or sneak some culture production in, so I think it is just the best option for me to start preparing for this war that I can go for with having the tactic. I don't know yet if I get air forces, but I think I just have to start preparing for it. Also, I'm the weakest at the moment, meaning after taking reserves in the patriotism, basically taking every amount of resource that I can get, because I will need a lot of resource if I maybe ideally want to go for 2 tactics with air forces, and then I will increase my population, and with building a cannon and revealing the tactic already, I will actually make sure to be the strongest instead of the weakest, which I think is worth it to do so, even though of course I've revealed some information, but there haven't been that many H2 strength events revealed, and so I think it is worth it to prepare for them now. With the last civil action, I could think about the efficient upgrade. If I then upgrade this coal mine at the next turn, it could still benefit me and give me some additional resources, but the problem is I don't really have enough population to go for the 2 tactics and maybe air forces on top, so I might need to destroy this mine at some point anyway, and so instead of going for the efficient upgrade, I just played the revolutionary idea to already be 1 civil action ahead, because with being on 6 civil actions I still have to be a bit careful. And I might have to take air forces for 3, and so I have to spend my actions efficiently. Montabishur disbands the warrior, using the free military action from the conman that he will now lose with going for the democracy, going to 16 culture production, leaving him maybe a bit vulnerable with only 3 military actions, but he is also nicely prepared to go for the military theory, will take the modern infantry, and with having the mobile artillery tactic has maybe a nice way to get enough strength going, also goes for the bro sports and the tanks, and crazily he saved 4 civil actions this turn with Darwin. Maybe he doesn't really need all of those texts, but still, it's kind of crazy to see where he took all of those cards from, and Darwin offering him 4 additional civil actions this turn. So definitely getting some nice value out of Darwin, also producing 5 additional culture thanks to Darwin. So a very nice Darwin play by Montabishur here. E5 will reveal the entrenchments tactics, so also he has a nice tactic for infantry and artillery units, will play the wave of nationalism now that he is the weakest, develops the cannons, will build one, will build even another one, and thanks to having the organized religion can now still get enough happy faces to not have any uprising issues, is now at 30 strength, will go for the mechanized agriculture and also the revolutionary idea to easily have enough science to develop the fundamentalism, maybe also go for air forces still and modern infantry. It will be a bit costly if he wants to achieve all of that, and so the revolutionary idea should be an important card for him. PV4 seeds, the autonomous territory is revealed. I was only willing to bid 1 unit. I think I can't afford spending more population because I need the resources and population to rebuild or to build enough units to potentially go for a war, because I think that at this point it's just my best order. Even I've drawn a 2nd war at my last draw, but it is the question if I will be able to quickly build enough strength to have the chance to go for 2 wars even. PV4 is at the end able to win the autonomous territory only for knights, so that's not that great to see, and he will take 6 additional food from it, helping him out with the population, can now increase his population, build 1 knight. His problem at the moment is that he doesn't have any military techs, so that will make it difficult for him to go for any tactics, so I was hoping that maybe he will have some issues with the military, and maybe that could help me to go for a big war against him at the end. PV4 goes for satellites and patriotism, has a lot of science, and the satellites could help him at least getting 2 additional strength at some point, also improving a potential impact of progress. Now it is my turn, and I actually see the impact of happiness into the deck, which at the moment is not that great because I have only theologies and can only go for 1 more. But ceding it has also something to do with the leader choice that I will go for at this turn, because I will actually go for Chaplin. I also thought about Steve Jobs, and we can maybe talk about this during the turn, but I will end up going for Chaplin, and then I thought the impact of happiness could end up being a decent impact for me, and I just wanted to start getting some culture out of seeding something, maybe having the chance to win an event like Cold War or the Crime Wave that I have seeded into the deck, and so I pushed, and the immigration is revealed, and thanks to building the theology the turn before, don't get hit by that. Then this turn I will first of all increase my population, and now there are some yellow cards in the row that I could consider taking. I could just take reserves and revolutionary idea, but the question is, do I actually need a revolutionary idea? Because if my plan is to go for the war, then I basically only need air forces and I'm ready to go. I have, thanks to the warfare and the common, and also having Catherine, enough military actions. Of course, getting something like military theory might be nice, but I thought maybe I just need more population and more resources. The most reserves could be important, and then the urban growth to at some point build another theology cheaply could also maybe turn out to be more important. So I at the end took, after building a cannon to still remain one of the two strongest, maybe hopefully allowing me to win a crime wave or potential Cold War. And also I build a cannon because the entrenchments tactic is revealed, and maybe it could be an option to copy that and go for that instead of the positional army tactic. And then I will take the reserves, the urban growth, and then I could of course just play reserves already to spend my last civil action, but I at this point made the decision to go for one of those leaders. I could of course still wait for another leader, but there are not the most viable ones. Churchill would probably be the best one, helping me with my war, but no, I don't know when those will be available. I might have to take the air forces for 3, and playing all those yellow cards, getting enough population. It will all take a lot of civil actions, and there might not that much time left. I probably have to go for war in 2 turns. That might be my last chance, so I might not easily have enough civil actions to take a leader, and the happy faces might actually be quite helpful, because if I get 2 more population out, then having an additional happy face will already mean that I don't have to build a theology. Instead, I can put the population into military, and if I get 2 happy faces from Chaplain, then even if I lose the 2 yellow tokens at a point when I declare the war, I would still have enough happy faces, and maybe if I play reserves for food also could get enough to have enough happy faces, even with losing 2 yellow tokens, to just put a lot of units into the military. Also, of course, I have to think about how much resources I will be having. Going for 2 air forces and now 3 more units will cost me 29 resources. And when we take a look at my resource count, I'm at 10 resources the next turn, plus 12 from yellow cards is 22, and another 7 production is 29. So in 2 turns I will have exactly enough resources to go for this war. So I have the necessary resources, but no, I still need the air forces, and if I don't have the chance to take the air forces the next turn, it could be difficult, or basically almost impossible, to find all of the civil actions to then take the air forces in 2 turns and still get enough population, because I can't easily delete a lot of stuff because I need to keep my resource production. Could of course start spanning a lot of labs, but with not knowing if I get the air forces, it would be very costly to do so. So I really have to hope to get the air force at the next turn, otherwise it could get a bit tricky. At least I'm still not that much behind. Maybe I can still find peaceful ways, maybe go for wonder or something at the next turn, like fast food chains, but the war might still be my best hope to have a nice finish in this game. I thought about Steve Jobs, but as you saw, I have just enough resource to go for all of it, so I might not be able to score some culture when developing in technology, and I think getting the 1 additional happy face, also especially with the impact of happiness now being in the deck, is just more important, so I just went for Chaplain to more easily get enough population for that war. I now draw 3 impacts. The impact of culture maybe could be interesting if I go for a movie, but as you can see, Martha Boucher has already a lot of culture reduction. At least will lose some when he loses Darwin. Goes now for an upgrade to oil, takes the engineering genius, the Manhattan Project, and increases his population to go for a knight, is now at 32 strength, and just makes sure that he is nicely prepared for war. Might miss out on air forces, and especially then the Manhattan Project might offer him some important strength. E5 will go for a war over technology. If you remember, earlier on H2 he already went for a war over technology against PV4, and now it will happen again. Declares the war, will go for the fundamentalism, and the science that he might steal from that war might really help him a lot. and could allow him to then go for a normal war maybe at the next turn, because now he can actually go for fundamentalism this turn, go for modern infantry, and when he takes the copy of revolutionary idea, steals some science, he has enough science to go for air forces, and could maybe threaten to copy the positional army tactic and then go for one air force if he has the chance to take one, and then maybe go for a war with culture at the next turn if he wants to. And he is definitely threatening. PV4 has a lot of blue text, and he might get some nice value out of this, especially because PV4 also has a lot of science production, so he definitely will be able to steal something. PV4 will offer the military alliance pact to me, and I will accept it at the end. I at least had to consider if maybe it could even be beneficial for me if PV4 gets more problems, because maybe I will also go for war against him, but there's no air force in the row yet, and so I really don't know if I will have the chance to get an air force, go for a war, and then it's still nice for me to have the 3 additional strength, and so I think I should accept this pact, especially basically, no, I think I didn't have to consider this really, because this will actually also cancel the scientific cooperation pact, so that's just too much value, and I definitely have to accept this pact, and I don't think I had to consider it really. I mean, I at least thought for a moment about it, if maybe it could be beneficial for me if PV4 gets even more problems, but with the scientific cooperation pact being cancelled, I definitely have to accept this pact. There is not any military technology still in the row for PV4, which is definitely unfortunate for him. He is stuck on still knights and warriors, and that is of course not enough to offer him enough strength. He has the military theory and the satellites in hand, is not willing to develop them because those just might get stolen, and now he can, at least after maybe strategy gets stolen, can at least go for the military theory, but he definitely, it's definitely not great for him that he maybe doesn't have the chance to go for air forces or rockets. If he gets rockets, he can go for the mobile artillery tactic. So that is definitely really not great for him. Now it is my turn, and I will not use my politics action, but I will actually consider to go for a war already, because as you can see, I do definitely get quite a bit lucky here and have the chance to take a copy of Air Force, maybe allowing me to still go for this war. Without an Air Force, I think it would have been quite difficult to pull off. Maybe I could have still tried to set up something, maybe at least going for a little bit of strength, maybe only 2 armies and 1 air force. Maybe something like this could potentially be possible to achieve, but it would be not guaranteed if I would get a copy of air force when I don't get one now. But now I can go for an air force, and I will go for a turn. And I did consider declaring a war over culture against PV4 with the turn, but at the end made the decision against it, because PV4 likely would be able to win the war. Because there are 2 copies of rockets left, and if he only gets one of them, it will depend a little bit on what e5 will at the end will steal. But even if he steals the strategy, PV4 can, even if the rockets are on 3, take rockets, develop military theory, develop rockets, play patriotism, destroy one thing, disband both warriors, build 3 rockets, copy the mobile artillery tactic, and with that he would be able to win a war. If I only go up to 48 strength, and I can't really go for more. And I had to play the reserves at the beginning to make space in my hand. But I still considered going for this war, because there might be a chance that maybe he gets very unlucky and I could actually win the war. But even if he loses the war, it could maybe be important for him to be forced to spend those actions and defend against the war, because the problem is that if the age ends before my next turn, it will be difficult for me, or I can't go for a war with 2 air forces. I could only go for one with 1 air force, which is quite a bit of a difference, because if I lose Catherine, then I just don't have the military actions to go for that many units, and also if I lose Catherine, I don't have the civil actions to elect Chaplain, not get a civil action back, but I can't elect Chaplain now because I still need a military action from Catherine, so I really would like the age not to end before my next turn. If PV4 isn't getting hit by a war, maybe he could potentially try to end the age, and then maybe I can't go for war, even though he might still need to spend some actions on taking rockets and building some, because he also has to be concerned about getting hit by a war from e5 or maybe Martha Bashir. And because of that, and also because I thought e5, maybe he might want to go for war anyway. He definitely did some preparations with going for fundamentalism, now the war over tech and so on. So I thought I maybe don't really need to go for that war, because e5 might do it even if there's no war. pv4 can't easily just end the h. Well, he might be safer from me. He is still not completely safe, because at least I can go for war with one air force, which might still be high enough to win against him in the war, and also he has to be in trouble, would be in trouble maybe then from a war from others if he just takes some cards and makes himself less prepared for war. So I at the end think it's definitely the better decision to not go for the war, but at least considered it, because if the h now ends before my next turn, that would be quite bad. And with not guaranteed that I will go for a war with 2 air force, I still considered if I maybe can do something peaceful. But I think my opponents would just have better chances. I'm still not really great prepared for impacts. I have some in hand, but can't really push any of them. I have now also the impact of balance and architecture in hand, and so I think I still have to hope to go for this war. And I think there are some chances that the IH won't end before my next turn. Martin Bescher offers the international tourism to e5. This time e5 will accept. In the other game he actually rejected the pack. Again, Martin Bescher will get more out of this pack than e5, but this time e5 is willing to accept it. Martin Bescher will then go for the second copy of Air Force, destroys one lab, goes for one, takes the military build-up, the efficient upgrade, increases his population. Then e5 will steal the architecture and the strategy and 7 science, so a really big impact war over technology. And now is the big question, will he go for a war or not? And the answer is no. Instead he will go for a plunder, and interestingly he will go for movies and Flemings, showing that maybe he either doesn't have a war, or maybe he thinks that him going for a movie is the best thing for him, which is also a bit risky, because with spending those resources into the movie where he gets some nice cultural reduction, I am threatening to go for a war with 86 strength against him, and he definitely doesn't have enough strength to threaten a defense here. So he is maybe hoping that I will choose to go for a war against pv4 at my turn, but I think it's a bit of a risky play, and maybe it could have been safer for him to save up some more resources and make him better prepared against the war, and maybe also leaving him with enough science to potentially threaten to go for air forces. Now it's pv4's turn, and there are 5 cards left in the deck, so I think ending the H for him is maybe would be possible, but would be just too costly. Instead he goes for military theory, disbands some units, and then builds 2 rockets, copies the tactics, now at 41 strength. At the next turn again go for 1 more rocket for satellites, or goes for satellites already this turn. And with that can go up to more than 50 strength at least, but it might not really be enough to defend if I or maybe also the other players decide to go for a war. And yeah, now at my decision, the H won't end. I will be able to go for a war with 2 positional armies with air forces, which will put me at 86 strength if I go against pv4 at 83, because the military alliance will be cancelled, but then of course pv4 will also lose 3 strength. And yeah, so now the big question is, which player will I go against with the war? Martin Bescher is definitely out of the question. He can easily go for 2 more air forces, finish Manhattan Project, and he's also the most ahead in culture, and I don't think I can have any nice hopes to overtake him, and might just finish last if I go against him. But there is definitely a case that I can go against e5 here. e5 can set up a better defense than pv4, but he also, he could get help from some developments. For example, Cold War could allow him to go for air forces, and I think also some potentially helpful events are still in the deck, like arms industry, or maybe a colony that could give him additional science or resources and stuff. I think especially science for air forces could potentially be there. And then he could go for another cannon, 1 air force, copy entrenchments tactic again. Yeah, so he has the potential to go for more, so it could get wrong in that regard. But basically the war is a question, do I want to go for a relatively secure 3rd place, or almost secure 1st place, but 3rd place, but with basically almost no hope for 2nd place, which would be the case if I go for a war against pv4, or do I maybe want to have some hopes for 2nd place, but also with the risk of finishing last? That was the question that I had to answer when making the decision which player I want to go for against with this war. And yeah, I did some calculations on how the culture situation might be looking if I go for a war against e5 and if he doesn't get help, because that's maybe still the more likely scenario that there isn't a nice help for him, but it definitely could happen. But if not, then he can maybe go for something like 65 strength at his turn. And then I can go for war against him, and then after the war, plain armed intervention against PV4, so that I also get a bit of a culture swing against him. And if I remember it correctly, I hope I remember it correctly, then before going into the final impacts, of course it's just a rough calculation and it depends on what the players will do, and I could definitely have maybe overlooked some nice options for my opponents, but I come to the conclusion that there will be, I think, a bit more than 10 culture in front of e5 and a bit more than 20 culture in front of pv4. But I only did those calculations in my head, and I'm not completely sure if it maybe was the other way around, if it maybe was 10 culture before pv4 and 20 before e5, but I think it was 10 before e5 and 20 before pv4. And yeah, so I would be in front of 2 opponents before going into the final impacts, but the problem is I'm just very, very badly prepared for impacts. I have a lot of knowledge about some impacts actually, but also those that are, and none of them is really good, but also those that are left are not really good for me, because even those impacts that can sometimes be nice even when your position is really not that great, for example, impact of colonies, impact of wonders, impact of government, all of those impacts are not really that great. And if there's an impact like impact of technology, then already my lead that I would be having when going into the impacts could be gone, and then the other impacts can't also really help me to come back. And so I just thought the risk of finishing fourth is definitely there. It could of course happen that maybe I go for war against e5 and then he or maybe Marta Pescher goes for war against pv4, which would then again leave me maybe with a decent position to at least finish third, but I don't know that. e5 at least didn't really make it look like he plans to go for war. If he now is maybe forced to defend, he could just declare war on the way, which then, but again, would also make it that my chances for the second place are quite a bit less. Marta Pescher maybe could also go for war and just finish the Manhattan project, but I don't know if he would like to do this, and at the end, or if he has a war, and so at the end I just was more afraid of finishing fourth when I go against e5 than the hope that I had for finishing second. Of course, the second place gives 3 points for the standing, so it could be worth it to take some risks, but I was just a lot more afraid that I will actually finish fourth, because I'm just that badly prepared for impacts. And so at the end I made the decision to just play for the safe third place that I hopefully will be getting when I go for the war against pv4. So I will go for the war. I can elect chaplain now. Catherine has still done a very important job with offering me the additional military action. Also the patriotism is important, and now I have to destroy some stuff and will then be able to just enough resources, just enough civil actions, just enough military actions, so that worked out just very nicely, and I will be able to go up to 83 strength. And at the next turn I can then go for an armed intervention against one of my opponents. Marta Pescher will actually go for a war against pv4, can declare the war, finishes the Manhattan project, is now at 55. It won't be a big war, but yeah, it will. He isn't really at a big risk of losing this war. I don't know if there would be any outcome where he loses it. Probably not, because I don't think he would need to risk it then. But yeah, like this, he can go for the war and get some additional culture out of this. Now h4 starts, and e5 will take a look at pv4's hand. I think he will see it opens the crime wave, and that will make it at pv4 and e5 lose some culture, which of course this event also could have me helped a little bit in my hopes to finish second when I go for war against e5. But now it's only 3 culture. e5 then will build a movie, blaze the revolutionary idea, and then ends his turn. And now pv4 has to defend against the war. Will see it opens the inhabited territory. e5 is the only one willing to bid for this. Will win it for swordsman. And then pv4 plays the endowment, goes for the democracy, and he basically can't do a lot else than just building 1 rocket, going up to 50 strength, and that is basically all he can do. Now, with me getting the big war against him and also pv4 losing even more culture, I think there's no risk that I will finish fourth any longer, meaning at my turn I will make the decision to go for an armed intervention against e5, because there's maybe some very small hope that I can still finish at the second position. Marta Pescher will steal some culture from the war, will get a 25 space flight, is well prepared for a lot of impacts, so I think he has very, very good chances to win anyway, but e5 doesn't get a wonder, and I at the end of my turn will be at 124 culture. If e5 gets one more production, he will get into the final impacts with a bit more culture than me, but if there's the perfect combination of impacts and maybe something like refugees revealed before the final impacts, then maybe there could be some hope that I could still finish at the second position. At my turn I will disband a cannon, build one theology, will disband another cannon, build one agriculture, because the impact of agriculture could be one of the impacts that I can potentially hope to score some points again, because so far only PV4 and E5 have seeded, and PV4 could have definitely pushed the impact of agriculture. Of course, building this farm could make it more likely that E5 upgrades his farms, but it also helps me for potential impact of harmony. It costs, of course, for the impact of competition. So yeah, it's the question if it is actually worth it. Maybe I should not build it, and maybe there's a higher chance that E5 won't fix his food production and rather wants to just increase his culture production as much as possible. Then I will go for the military theory, the impact of progress I have knowledge about, so it's basically only about the impact of government developing it and also giving me a bit of additional strength, and then I will take those cards. If you have been careful, you might have noticed that I disbanded those cannons, but I could have actually disbanded those riflemen and copied the entrenchments tactic. And yeah, and that would just give me more strength, but at this point I just had to think about what could be a scenario where I actually finish still the second position. And I think for that scenario to happen, I might need the impact of strength at the end. But I don't have the impact of strength. Matabeshir didn't push any event, so if I'm now at more than 60 strength, I think Matabeshir probably wouldn't push the impact of strength with just already being in a strong position. Maybe he would still do it to gain some points to get in against e5, but it might not really be worth the risk. However, now, when he just can go for bro sports, one upgrade, he can get stronger than me, and he could push the impact of strength. It would still be risky. e5 might be able to contest it if he goes all in on military, but it is a scenario that maybe could happen, and I think that would be the most likely scenario for me to still finish at the second position. So at the end I made a decision that for me it is actually better to be at less strength now, to make it more likely that maybe an impact of strength is in there, which potentially could give me a +10 against e5, and I need to catch up some points through the impacts, and one hope could be the impact of agriculture, but there are a lot of impacts where I'm just will lose some culture again, so I need also something like impact of strength. And if of course, I will now be weaker, so if Matabeshir gets stronger, I'm not prepared to win any event like refugees any longer, but I might just get the perfectly outcome anyway, and that could be that Matabeshir seeds the impact of strength, something like refugees is revealed, and then e5 doesn't compete for the impact of strength. Not really likely, but I'm not in danger of finishing last any longer anyway, and that was the scenario that I thought maybe could be possible, how I can still finish at the second position. Maybe I could just stay stronger. I even hope that Matabeshir then will see the impact of strength, but I am not sure if he would do it. And now maybe he could potentially do it, because he can see the impact of strength without making it obvious that he has seeded it, and e5 at the end might not prepare for it, especially with me seeing me going for less amount of strength, making it less likely that I have pushed it. So yeah, that at the end was my decision for my last turn, but my hopes for the second place I think are really not that great, but that could maybe be a way how it could still be possible. For that, Matabeshir has to push now. He will first of all steal 10 culture from PV4, and he doesn't push. Instead he goes for an armed intervention. That of course maybe also could have been a way how I have some chance for the second position if e5 now loses 7 culture from the armed intervention, but sadly is able to defend, and Matabeshir will go for bro sports, goes for an upgrade, builds one, goes for tanks, and then can upgrade one knight to tank, is now at 62 strength, finishes the space flight, and is now able to get 25 culture out of it. Then it's e5's turn. He will take a look at my hand, opens the Cold War. I and Matabeshir will gain some additional science, but of course we don't have any chance to use it any longer. e5 will then go for bro sports, and sadly, as you can see, he is just preparing for the 2 impacts, or for the 1 impact that I'm having in there, and the 1 impact, and maybe I could have had some hopes, but maybe I shouldn't have built a farm, and But maybe he might still just go for that and fix this impact, because PV4 might have pushed this impact as well. And now he is 6 culture ahead of me, so I'm not that much behind. But yeah, there's basically not really any impact where I can have a lot of hopes that I can actually catch up the culture, because no, impact of agriculture is gone, impact of strength will not be in there, so no, impact of agriculture is actually in there, so I get at least 1 culture out of that, out of building the farm. Impact of colonies is in there, but I don't have any colony. Then there is actually the impact of technology, so that impact is actually quite bad for me, and PV4 gets 24 out of it. Then we have the impact of wonders, which is also not really that great for me. And at the last impact we have the impact of happiness, which I think gives all players plus 16, no, plus 14 for PV4. So at the end I am, as in the 4-player game before, at the end I'm able to finish at the 3rd position. Which is again not great, but again maybe I have to be relatively happy with it, at least how it was looking at the end, because my economical situation was not really that great going into H3. Maybe I got a little bit unfortunate with losing some resources to when the Guitar was revealed, and then a lot of strength events being revealed after I was not one of the 2 strongest any longer. That was of course not ideal, cost me a lot of value, took quite a while until I could build up my economy, and then my position wasn't really not that great, but then I got a very nice opportunity, also thanks to the Colossus draws, which were very viable, to give me a war and a positional army tactic, and PV4 had some very annoying difficulties for him, because he didn't get any military tech, couldn't really do a lot to prepare for his military, and with that I was able at the end, just barely able, as you saw, I just had exactly the stuff that I needed, and that was at the end enough to go for this war and at least finish at the 3rd position. But again, of course not an ideal finish, but no, it could have again also gotten worse as in the last game. And now E5 had some troubles maybe in H2, where he only had 1 iron mine actually, but he very nicely recovered and managed to build up quite a strong economy. The railroad and the ocean liner service did some nice stuff. I think here we can see that having some iron production, I mean he didn't have really that much production, but that being able to go for some H2 wonders when there are such strong ones in the game can definitely swing the game back in your favor. I missed out on the copies of iron, and took a while until I could go my coal going, until I could get my government farm going, and with that couldn't really go easily for any of the H2 wonders, and then just didn't have a powerful enough civilization to really play for the win, and at the end had to be happy to at least have this tactic and the ability to go for this big war. Yeah, so that was the game at the end. Well played by Martin Becher for winning it. He had a very nice Darwin going, had the vast territory, had some military pressure with 3 medieval army tactics, thanks to the additional yellow tokens from Columbus, and just played it very well and managed to win this game. And with that we have now a total of 3 games finished and can take a quick look at the standings. And with being able to win the 4-player game that we just saw, Martin Becher is now in the lead in the standings with 11 points after 3 games finished. He managed to win 2 games. E5 is in the 2nd position with 9 points. PV4 is already a bit behind with only 5 points, but it's still relatively close and every player still has chances. I'm in the last position with 2 points, but at least I have 1 less game played. So if my next game if I will be able to get a nice result out of it, then I might be able to still be back in the running again, but I'm definitely under pressure now, because if I get another bad result, it's starting to get quite difficult to still fight for the win of the World Championship. So then the next game it would really be great to get a nice result out, and so I hope you're excited to see that. And then I hope it was an interesting game for you to watch. And thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.